All right, so Kent, why don't you go ahead and talk about our next pain point?
Sure thing. And now we come to the oldest and most persistent pain point, which is cost. And the pain point, cost predates Industry 1.0. Now we're Industry 4.0, but cost has been around since, before industry was a thing. So whether it's a single process upgrade or enterprise-wide overhaul, every project has a budget, but it's always smaller than you want it to be, right? And if you're paying by device, that's really where you start to run into cost issues. But with Ignition's unlimited licensing, you pay by the server, meaning that you can add as many clients, screens, tags, devices, or connections as needed for no extra cost. If you don't have an Ignition license, certainly you can download Ignition for free, and it runs in a 2-hour trial. You can refresh that trial as long as you need to. In fact, some of our biggest clients have told us that they actually built full proof of concepts using just that Ignition trial. And then once you have that license, you do purchase Ignition, everything that you built during the trial, tags, templates, UDTs, windows, scripts, all of that stays. No need to start over. You don't even have to import it, or export it from your trial system into a new production system. It's just all one and the same right there. Another cost saving feature is that Ignition is modular, so you only pay for what you need. But overall, we try to remove barriers here at Inductive Automation, and cost has become such a barrier for digital transformation. And so, we're trying to do our part to make it, simple, straightforward, and easy. But Reese, do you have any, additional comments about overcoming cost pain points when planning or implementing a project?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as you said, cost is pretty straightforward. I feel like, if we spend more than we make, that's typically not going to end really well. I guess contrary to the Fed's recent track record here, but as you mentioned, with all the different unlimiteds that Ignition has to offer, unlimiteds, I'm doing quotation marks in the air here. That's kind of what I like to call them. It's Ignitions is just such a no-brainer. We're starting to see a lot more projects go to the enterprise route and bringing data from multi-sites and aggregating that into one location. So, the unlimited tag, just that alone, the part of the licensing, it really allows the ability to scale out large solutions without concern for going back to the well to fund those licenses and so forth. And really, that's exactly the case with American Water. With so many different site deployments, the low cost barrier that Ignition has to offer, it really starts to become a huge advantage. And I'd also mention, in addition, another cost that might not be as tangible, but should absolutely be considered is time to market, right? Or cost and time that it takes to complete this project or get it to that proof of concept stage. So with the trial mode, as you mentioned, with free downloads, with the Inductive University, user manual, designer is super easy to develop in. All these things that Ignition has to offer, it really knocks down that development time so you can bring value, very, very quickly and kind of and get that buy-in from the stakeholders.
Great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually leads us really well into our next topic. And so, Brad, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Kent. So, as we just discussed, time is arguably the most valuable resource we have, right? And tasks that are a huge drain on time and effort pose a danger to a project's timeline. Inefficient ways of completing tasks is one of the main culprits for this pain point. And additionally, some tasks might just be too much to put on one person's plate. And so software that only allows one person to be in the designer at a time really slows things down. Ignition's free trial helps you quickly find a way to complete these kinds of tasks. Ignition lets you have unlimited people working concurrently on a project, on a gateway, even on the same screen. And your team can really put their heads together and knock out time-consuming tasks quickly. Rapid project development methodologies, templates, UDTs, all of those really speed up those kinds of tasks. And templates really help to streamline a task, and it maximizes your efficiency. So, any insight on this pain point, Steve?
Yeah, thanks. One word, COVID. So in 2020, we were in the midst of developing this project that I just presented to you. And so that was during a time in the US when everybody was working remotely. So because that we were able to have multiple people logged in at the same time developing in the application really helped us to keep the project on track. So it was an unfortunate situation that the country was in at the time, but thinking about it now, I don't know how we would have been successful delivering the project when we did.
Right. And I can only think that, 20 or 30 years ago, had that happened, we just wouldn't have had the ability to create those kinds of solutions that quickly, right? It would have been, you would have had to work on a project and emailed it back to a coworker for them to review and do more, and they would have had to email it back to you. It would have been a very
Yeah,
cumbersome process.
yeah, totally. And in the Ignition community, there are examples and source code out there that can be leveraged. The open source nature and the community that's willing to share project examples or best practices, I think, is also another huge time saver.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Steve. Kent, I'll pass this back over to you for our next pain point.
Yeah, and this is really where cost and time come together, which is the pain point of slow ROI. What is ROI? ROI is your return on investment. So you're spending some money, you're investing up front, and you're expecting that you're getting the value out of that, investment. And so organizations naturally want this to happen quickly, and they may get frustrated if ROI is not apparent within the time frame they want. And this relates to the cost pain point, in that the greater the cost, the longer it takes to recoup that cost or to get ROI. If a project scope gets bigger, slow ROI can make it hard to get the additional funding that's needed, or the support that's necessary to continue. And if slow ROI is a major issue, Ignition is a game changer, because it saves, both time and money. Kind of the benefits we see there, the things we've talked about. You don't have the typical licensing issues, so you can implement changes quickly. We help with optimizing deployment, maintenance, and uptime, which lowers your overall total cost of ownership. And digitization reduces operational and maintenance costs. Ignition also gives you, better visualization of that data to let you see and respond to issues faster, get the data in the right hands in the right way. You can leverage the MQTT module for bandwidth savings, to help reduce data rates. Real-time visibility of all assets with the cloud has direct savings in travel costs of not having people on site to view something. They can view it remotely. And then, like we've talked about before, overall faster deployment is going to equal a quicker ROI. But another solution comes back to those quick wins we were talking about earlier. Creating this proof of concept, that idea of kind of building something quickly, getting quick value at the beginning, those quick wins, that increases the customer's patience for long-term returns. And then finally, as we set realistic expectations for stakeholders from the beginning, then they're going to stick around with us, that we got that buy-in at the beginning. So, Reese, any comments from you about dealing with slow ROI based on your experiences?
Yeah, I think this one kind of goes back to the one I just talked about with the cost, but it kind of ties into also building our strategy, right? Not only does that include figuring out the technology and what's going to be cost effective, but also how are we going to execute the steps to get to that end result, right? So that's when we would decide if we need to provide a quick example and get feedback for further direction, or do we have enough information, right, to go off of and have a bit of a development runway to create the general project, and then you can kind of tweak things as needed as you go along. But this is completely dependent on the stakeholders, the company culture, the process that the operators are going through, and really it's going to be unique for each scenario, each customer, each project, etc. Really what drives this is what makes the most sense in each situation. So in the case of American Water, we wanted to get some quick wins at the enterprise portal, as I mentioned earlier. So we had, the ability to show the power of the system right out of the gate. So, one of the steps that we did was we selected a site that ACC, our partners on this project, a site that they're very familiar with. And while they were working on getting the tags and the mapping, etc., we were working on the portal side of things, creating our first revision of the enterprise portal and the visuals and how we're going to represent those tags. So we're able to kind of meet in the middle and provide an idea of what the system could look like. And once we hit that first milestone, folks were able to visualize those new features and also like, oh, we should include this or that or the other thing. If you can access the data from site A, could you also grab that data too and put that side by side? So it really all boils back to sitting down with the stakeholders, building the strategy according to what makes sense in that situation, and bringing that value quickly and efficiently to the folks that need it.
Perfect, thank you. And Brad, back to you for the next one.
This next pain point is at the crux of any digital transformation initiative: difficulty finding, understanding, or leveraging information. There's no point in using IIoT-enabled technologies to collect all this data if you don't have an effective way to use it, or if by the time you can use it, that information is already out of date or doesn't accurately represent your plant floor or your field site. And when I say use data, I'm talking about data access. Is data democratized throughout the organization, or can only a select few see it? Context. Information is important, but information without context is just numbers. And actionable insights. Can you look at the data you're collecting and leverage it to improve your operations? Ignition offers a robust solution to this pain point because it breaks down data silos and gathers information from the plant floor to the edge to the cloud and lets you see it on desktop, mobile, most any device. There have also been a few recent Ignition features that can provide more data or let you use it in a more active way. The first that I want to highlight is the tag report tool, which lets you quickly build queries that can search for specific tags based on properties like tag path, quality, types, traits, ancestors, etc. And once you've defined the parameters for a specific tag search, you can save that query for later use and generate like a CSV export of the search results. You can also perform the tag search via a scripting function for those of you who love scripting. The other big one is the machine learning manager, and it isn't actually in a specific version of Ignition. Instead, it's on the Ignition Exchange. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Exchange is an online repository of free Ignition resources developed both by the IA team as well as Ignition community members. And honestly, the amount of cool stuff on the Exchange is staggering. There's over 250 resources. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. But coming back to that machine learning manager, it allows users to create, train, and process machine learning models. And this can be used for a variety of practical applications, right? Including anomaly detection, preventative maintenance, reject or bad product prediction, process tuning, even digital twin simulation and prediction. So Steve, do you have anything to add about leveraging the information?
Yeah, I'll key off of something that Reese said earlier, except I'm going to call it the 4 rights. And that is about getting the right data to the right people in the right place at the right time. And that was exactly the challenge that we had with our project. Challenge met, but understanding what those 4 rights were was really a key part of the project. Perspective, presents a key feature for the project in the fact that we were able to go mobile. Tablets are commonly used in this industry, so having the real-time monitoring application on your person was a huge benefit. And then, having to kind of overcome this OT-IT, barrier, the convergence of OT-IT was another key element because meanwhile, the folks in process development and MSAT, they needed result data for analytical and process improvement purposes, and they're across the campus, so they're not within the OT network space where they could access that data. So again, that was another huge challenge overcome by being able to make that data extensible to other parts of the organization. So those are that I think to me are probably the most important aspects of the project when it comes to difficulty, getting information to the right folks at the right time.
Well, thanks, Steve. Kent, how about you discuss our last pain point?
Yeah, we're about out of time here, but a fact of life is things go wrong. We all need help sometimes. And so needing support itself isn't really a pain point. Instead, it's about the support that you get. And unfortunately, a lot of tech support out there in the world is not great. Support is something that we really pride ourselves on here at Inductive Automation. That's not just our support division, which is excellent, but also a bunch of online support, whether that's through, our ecosystem of partners, or whether that's through our distributors, whether it's through Inductive University and our online user manual, all that kind of stuff. We're trying to get you the support that you need so that you can make sure your projects are successful. And Reese, in 15 seconds, you agree? You like the support from Inductive Automation?
Yeah, I'll keep it really quick here. Absolutely. As an end user that I use Ignition on the daily, if you've used inductive support, you know that it's incredibly knowledgeable. Everybody there's incredibly knowledgeable, follow through with outstanding items, and often, actually, I just had this happen a couple of weeks ago. I'll take items that we work through back to the dev team and implement some of those items back into the platform to continue making the Ignition platform just that much better. So, you guys really provide a service that's second to none. And if support is a pain point of yours, it should definitely not be on this list.